Elena, are those my babies?
You have to choose between us.
The jewelry store went silent, sharp, suffocating, wrong. Lucas Carter froze, down on one knee, his hand still reaching forward. 3 children stood before him. Same dark hair, same eyes, his eyes. A small, innocent voice cut through the air. Daddy. The word hit like shattered glass. Lucas stopped. Breathing. Behind the children, the woman swayed, terror flooding her face. Eleanor. Behind him, a flawless diamond glittered cold and meaningless. In front of him stood the truth he was never meant to face. One word, 3 children, a perfect life and done. If you're ready to see how this moment changes everything, subscribe, like, and comment below because this story has only just begun. Lucas Carter stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows of his penthouse, staring out at the city below. Rain-slicked streets glimmered under the cold neon lights. The city looked alive, restless, but up here, in his glass fortress, everything felt still, precise, ordered, perfect, just like him. He adjusted the cuff of his shirt, the fabric crisp against his wrist. The tie was straight, the shoes polished. Even the faint scent of cedar in the room was arranged just so, methodical, controlled, everything in its place. Everything except what he felt. But he ignored that. He always ignored that. The soft click of the door made him turn. Chloe entered. She moved with practiced grace, heels tapping lightly against the marble floor. Her dress shimmered like liquid silver, perfectly tailored, hugging every curve in a way that was meant to impress. Her hair fell in effortless waves, and her eyes sparkled not with excitement, but with calculation. Lucas, she said, her voice smooth. Light, the gala next week. I've finalized the guest list. The press will be there. You know how important it is. She paused, tilting her head, studying him. And the centerpiece, the jewelry. It has to be flawless. I've seen the latest collection at Verdant and Sons. There's this one emerald cut. 8 carats. Simply exquisite. Lucas's gaze didn't leave the skyline. Flawless, he said. His voice calm, almost cold. I'll make sure it's exactly what you want. She smiled, a thin, knowing smile. I don't want exactly. I want perfect. You understand that, don't you? He turned slightly, just enough to meet her eyes. His expression didn't falter. Perfection isn't a desire. It's a requirement. She nodded, brushing a strand of hair from her face. Good. I knew you'd understand. Everyone's watching, Lucas. Every step, every detail. The right ring. It will cement everything. Lucas moved to pour himself a glass of whiskey, the amber liquid catching the light. He didn't drink. Not yet. He just liked the routine, the control. His eyes flicked back to Chloe. And if it isn't perfect, her smile didn't waver. Then it's not worth my time, or mine. There was silence for a moment, just the soft hum of the city below. Lucas lifted the glass to his lips, swirling it slowly. Then I'll make it perfect. Chloe stepped closer, her hand brushing against his arm. You always do, she said, voice softening just slightly. Even when I think, maybe you won't. He didn't respond. He couldn't. Not with the weight of every decision, every calculated step in his life pressing down on him. Love was optional. Control was necessary. Perfection was mandatory. She glanced out the window behind him, following his gaze. It's beautiful, isn't it? All of it. The city, the life we've built. Everyone thinks we're lucky, that we have it all. Lucas's internal voice whispered something he never let out loud. We have exactly what we chose. Nothing more, nothing less. Chloe's eyes returned to him. I'm counting on you, Lucas. This gala, the ring, everything, don't fail me. He nodded, precise. Measured, I won't. And with that, he turned toward the door, already calculating. Already planning. Every movement deliberate, every thought controlled, every second leading him closer to what he wanted. What he needed, perfection. The moment Lucas stepped into Verdant and Sons, the world shifted. The air was heavy with polished wood, soft leather, and the faint, intoxicating scent of aged paper and rare metals. Every step echoed lightly across marble floors. The lights were warm, precise, highlighting every curve of the displays without blinding. It was a cathedral of wealth, a temple of perfection. An elderly man appeared, moving with quiet authority. Verdant. His hair was white as snow, neatly combed back, eyes sharp and observing, like they could measure the weight of a person's soul in a glance. Murdoch Carter, he said, his voice calm, deliberate. It's a pleasure to see you again. Lucas inclined his head slightly. Mr. Verdant. His tone was measured. Controlled. Everything in its place. I've been looking forward to this, Mr. Verdant led him down a corridor lined with glass cases. Each piece inside gleamed, not just with value, but with intention. Each one told a story. Each one demanded attention. This is our new collection, Mr. Verdant said. Rare stones, flawless cuts. But the piece you requested is kept in the vault. Only the most discerning eyes may see it. Lucas's lips pressed together. Let's see it. A young clerk appeared, bowing slightly. Mr. Verdant gestured. The vault door opened with a quiet hiss. Inside, on a simple velvet cushion, lay the diamond. It caught the light and transformed it. Emerald cut, 8 carats. Flawless. It was impossible. Perfect. Every angle calculated. Every edge sharp yet elegant. It seemed almost alive, refracting the soft light into an impossible spectrum of green fire. Verdant's eyes studied Lucas as carefully as the diamond. It is rare, he said. One of a kind. Worth every penny, and then some. Lucas leaned slightly closer, examining the stone. There was no hesitation. No second thought. The bell above the store door chimed softly. It was a quiet sound, almost polite, barely noticed by anyone who mattered. And then she appeared, Eleanor, late 30s. Her beauty softened by life and hardship. Her hair, once glossy and full of youthful shine, was now pulled back carelessly, a few strands escaping. Her clothes were simple, faded, worn, but clean. No jewelry, no pretension, just her, carrying herself with the careful strength of someone who had learned to survive on her own. 3 small hands clung to her skirt. Little bodies trailing behind her. Matteo, Leon, Sophia, 4 years old, identical dark hair, bright, inquisitive eyes, all of them bundled tightly around her as she moved forward. Her voice low but firm. Stay close, she whispered. No touching, please, no touching. The children nodded, or tried to. They were distracted by the glittering displays, the crystal figurines, the shining cases. Sophia reached toward a small silver trinket. Eleanor caught her wrist mid-reach. Sophia, I said no. Watch me, okay? Lucas froze. He had been leaning on the window, swirling the whiskey and his glass. The moment he saw her reflection, his hand stilled. The glass nearly slipped. Time slowed. It was her, Eleanor. His Eleanor. The woman he had loved in a tiny, cramped apartment, before his life had been taken over by expectation, by money, by family demands. The woman he had left when the world demanded he choose success over love. She was real. She was here. And she had children. Memories tore through him, and bidden jag, flashback quick cuts, laughter bouncing off cheap, peeling walls, Lucas and Eleanor sitting cross-legged on the floor of a one-room apartment. Pizza boxes between them. He tossed a paper airplane. She caught it with a giggle. "You're impossible," she said, laughing. "You love it," he shot back. Grinning, brushing her hair from her forehead. Then, another memory, his father's voice, ponderous and cold, cutting through the air like steel. "That girl is a distraction. She's nothing. End it, or you get nothing, young Lucas." Pale but stubborn, fists clenched. "But I know, you don't choose this life, you don't choose her. You obey, or you lose everything I've built for you." Then the apartment again. Eleanor crying softly, leaning against him, his arms wrapped around her. "You'll come back for me, right? I promise," he whispered. And that promise had been broken, back in the present. Eleanor moved carefully among the displays, lifting a delicate silver locket from her bag. "Can this be fixed?" she asked the clerk softly. "It's not worth much, but it's important." Her voice barely carried, polite, humble, invisible to everyone, but the glass that reflected Lucas's stunned face. He didn't move, he couldn't. Every plan, every calculation, every polished step of his life, the penthouse, the cars, the deals, the ring, none of it mattered. She was here. She had always been here, somehow. Surviving without him. The children tugged at her skirt. Mateo laughed softly. Leon pointed at a figurine too tall for him to reach. Sophia's gaze flicked briefly to the reflection beside the window. Lucas's breath hitched. She still didn't see him. And yet, the world had shifted completely. Eleanor moved slowly, her worn shoes clicking lightly on the polished marble. She kept a careful grip on the three children, who shuffled behind her, eyes wide at the glittering displays. Mateo tugged on her sleeve. "Can we see the shiny ones, Mama?" "Not now," she whispered, guiding them past the cases. "Please, stay close." Lucas watched her from the reflection in the glass. Every small movement, every gentle motion, the way she adjusted her hair, how her fingers brushed against the locket in her bag felt magnified. His hand trembled slightly. The whiskey glass in his other hand wobbled. But he caught it before it could fall. She stopped at a small counter, kneeling just enough to reach the junior clerk. The girl behind the desk barely looked at her, typing lazily on the register. Eleanor took a deep breath, opening her bag slowly. Out came a delicate silver locket, the chain slightly bent, the surface scratched and dulled by time. She held it as though it were fragile enough to break. With a single touch. "Can this be fixed?" she asked softly. Her voice was low, apologetic, almost disappearing into the quiet hum of the store. It's not worth much, but it's important." The clerk glanced at it, raised an eyebrow, and gave a dismissive shrug. "It's just a locket. We can fix it, I guess, if you want." "Not that it's anything special." Eleanor forced a small smile, nodding. "I know, it means something to me." Lucas felt his chest tighten. He couldn't move. His mind raced. Should he step forward? Should he call her name? Or stay hidden and watch from the safety of his perfect, controlled world? He could see her lips move, hear the faint tremor in her voice. She was alive. She was real. She was here. And yet, she didn't see him. She didn't know he was standing mere feet away, frozen in reflection. His phone buzzed sharply in his pocket. He fumbled, glanced at the screen. "Chloe, a text. Did you get it?" "Send a pic." XX. Lucas's thumb hovered over the screen. He couldn't respond. Couldn't. Not now. The world he had spent decades building, the flawless penthouse, the perfect car, the ring, the control felt suddenly meaningless. The locket in Eleanor's hand, broken and fragile, carried more weight than all of it. He swallowed hard, trying to steady his breathing. Every instinct screamed at him to act, to step forward, to speak. But another part of him, precise, measured, trained for control, told him to wait, to watch, to understand what he had walked into. The children fidgeted. Sophia reached toward a crystal display and Eleanor caught her wrist gently. Sophia, no, watch me. Okay. We don't touch. Lucas's vision narrowed. He saw the faint curve of Eleanor's smile as she guided them. The way she knelt to speak softly to the clerk, the careful, deliberate movements. She had always had the same grace, the same patience he remembered from years ago. And in that moment, every memory he had tried to bury clawed its way back. Laughter in a cheap apartment, promises broken, dreams discarded, love abandoned. The locket in her hand trembled slightly, reflecting the store's light in tiny shards. And Lucas knew, with a jolt, that nothing in his perfect, measured life had ever mattered more than this fragile, broken piece and the woman holding it. Sophia's small voice broke through the fragile tension of the store like a bell in a cathedral. Daddy, the word hung in the air, soft, innocent, and steady. And yet it carried weight Lucas had never anticipated. The sound seemed to echo off the marble, bounce off the glass cases, and shatter something deep inside him. Time slowed. The hum of the air conditioning, the faint tapping of the rain against the window, even the murmurs of the junior clerk, all of it receded. Only the three children, Eleanor. And that single word existed. Lucas's breath caught. His chest tightened in a way that made his muscles ache. He could feel the glass of the whiskey in his hand, but it had grown meaningless, a relic of a life that now felt shallow and distant. His fingers twitched, almost yearning to reach out, to close the gap between the years he had lost and the moment unfolding in front of him. Eleanor froze. The locket in her hand trembled slightly. Her eyes widened, not with surprise, but with a fear so deep it made Lucas's heart thud violently. She couldn't move, couldn't speak. The quiet terror and shame etched into her face was like an earthquake, silent but powerful, shaking the foundation of everything he thought he had built. Sophia, still in her mother's arms, tilted her head slightly, curiosity shining through innocence. She repeated the word, almost as if testing it. Daddy. Her eyes, dark and wide, held something Lucas could not ignore, the unmistakable pull of recognition. Mateo and Leon, standing close behind, exchanged glances. Mateo's small finger, trembling but insistent, pointed directly at Lucas. Leon's jaw tightened as he stepped a little closer to his sister, protective yet uncertain, aware that something monumental was happening even if he couldn't put it into words. Lucas's knees buckled almost without conscious thought. He lowered himself slowly, deliberately, to their level. The world had become impossibly small and impossibly heavy all at once. The light glinting off the crystal cases on them no longer mattered. The perfect diamond he had come to buy, the opulence of the store, the meticulously ordered life outside, all of it faded into irrelevance. He looked at the children's faces one by one. Dark hair curling slightly over their foreheads, the shape of their eyes, the tiny smiles hovering at the edges of fear and curiosity. Every detail mirrored something in him, in Eleanor, and a past he had tried to bury beneath ambition and wealth. This, he whispered, his voice catching, almost breaking. This can't be real. Eleanor's hands tightened around Sophia, her knuckles white. Her breathing shallow, she took a cautious step backward, instinctively shielding the children. Lucas, her voice was trembling now, a fragile thread holding years of memories and pain together. The air between them was thick, charged, heavy with unspoken words, regrets, and the weight of years stolen. Lucas could see it all in her eyes, the fear of him, the guilt of the past, the burden she had carried alone, and the strength it had taken to survive. He reached out slowly, a hand hovering just inches from Eleanor and the children, trembling despite the control he had always prided himself on, the instinct to pull them close, to right every wrong, to claim the years he had lost. Fought with every cautionary voice in his mind, he knew the world outside was still waiting, still demanding, still exacting perfection from him. But in this moment, all that mattered was here now, before him. The three children stared, sensing something monumental, something shifting in the air around them. They didn't speak. They didn't move. Only their eyes watched, wide, innocent, unafraid. And Lucas felt something he hadn't felt in years. Unfiltered connection, a tether to a life he never knew existed, but that was undeniably his. For a heartbeat, nothing happened, and then the store seemed to exhale. The soft murmur of air conditioning returned, the faint tap of rain on the windows came back, but Lucas didn't move. He couldn't. He was caught, suspended, at the impossible intersection of past and present, of choices made and lives unacknowledged. He swallowed hard. Eleanor. The word was almost a whisper. It carried both apology and longing, shame and hope, regret and wonder. Sophia's small hand reached out, brushing against her mother's arm, and then hesitated in the air between her and Lucas. A pause, a breath. And in that single, suspended moment, Lucas understood that nothing, no amount of money, no ring, no success had ever mattered more than this fragile, unexpected, undeniable truth standing before him. He looked at Eleanor again, at the children, at the little locket she still held, and the world, for once, didn't demand perfection. It demanded only recognition. Sophia blinked up at him wide-eyed, innocent, her small hand clutching her mother's sleeve. She had been quiet until now, watching her mother with a careful intensity, reading the tears that streaked her face, the trembling lips, the rigid posture. Then her gaze drifted, slowly, inquisitively. It landed on the man kneeling before them, tall, imposing, a face unfamiliar yet somehow known. The sharp line of his jaw, the deep-set eyes, the dark hair, the photo she had once glimpsed, hidden in a drawer, the one her mother had whispered about in fragments, in secrets she had never explained. Sophia tilted her head, her small lips parted, a soft, uncertain whisper barely rose above the quiet of the store. Daddy. The word hung in the air like a fragile glass ornament, wobbling but refusing to fall. Then she said it again, this time louder, more certain, her curiosity overcoming hesitation. Daddy. The moment snapped. Time froze. Every sound, every motion, every hum of the store disappeared. The glassy tinkle of crystal, the soft hum of air conditioning, the murmur of the clerk gone. Lucas's vision narrowed and expanded all at once. He felt the seconds stretch, elastic, unbearable, sacred. His eyes swept across the room, capturing every detail in sharp, impossible clarity. Eleanor, her face drained of color, white as porcelain. Lips parted in silent panic. Shame and terror collided in her expression, raw and unfiltered. She clutched the children, arms trembling. Years of hidden struggle, fear, and exhaustion radiated from her, and Lucas felt it pierce him like ice through the chest. The triplets, Matteo, Leon. Sophia, small bodies frozen mid-step, eyes wide with curiosity, tiny hands hovering and steady, capturing the moment before them without fully understanding it. The resemblance was undeniable: dark hair, sharp brows, expressive eyes, his eyes, every subtle gesture, every twitch of a hand, every small frown mirrored him and Eleanor both. The ring. It sat on the velvet pad behind him, glittering impossibly in the soft light, cold, perfect, worth millions, but suddenly, in that frozen eternity, it was meaningless. The polished stone, the flawless cut, the perfection of it couldn't compete with the truth standing before him. And then there was Mr. Verdant. The elderly jeweler watched with quiet understanding, eyes narrowed, lips pressed together, not shock, not judgment, but pity, the kind of pity reserved for those who have built everything, only to realize the foundation was wrong. He had seen this moment before. Lucas could feel it in the silent weight of the man's stare. A soft chime echoed through the store. The bell over the door rang gentle, polite. And then Chloe entered. She walked in with the energy of someone who expected to be the center of attention, beaming, confident, exquisite, darling. I couldn't wait. I had to see it on. Her words froze. Her eyes widened. The smile fell, half-formed, it cracked, shattered. The gaze that had once commanded rooms, that had charmed journalists and socialites alike, faltered as it landed on the scene before her. Lucas. On his knees, a man stripped of control in this one unbearable moment. Eleanor, disheveled, exhausted, clutching the 3 small children to her chest. The word daddy still lingering in the air, impossible to ignore. Chloe's lips parted, but no sound came out. Her eyes darted from Lucas to the children, from the children to the ring. And back again. Recognition, shock, betrayal, confusion, rage, all of it, stacked in layers. Impossible to unravel at a glance. Lucas's pulse hammered in his ears. He looked down at the ring, the $10 million symbol of perfection he had so carefully sought. Then he looked at the 3 children, their tiny faces mirroring bits of him, glimpses of Eleanor, fragments of a life he had never known, a life stolen from him by choices he had made and choices forced upon him. The soundtrack of the city, the store, the world gone. Only the sound of his own heartbeat, loud and erratic, filling the void. The air was thick, electric, and breathable. The weight of years' lies, secrets, and love lost, denied, stolen, pressed down. Lucas could feel it in his chest and his stomach. In the tightening of his throat, Chloe's eyes snapped back to him, narrowing, sharp, dangerous. Her voice finally came, low and cutting, though the calmness was a thin veneer over the storm inside. Explain. Now. But Lucas couldn't. Words had fled. The world had been reduced to a single, unarguable truth: 3 children, 1 mother, 1 life he had never seen. And as the moment stretched, unbroken, unforgiving, he realized perfection had shattered, and nothing could ever put it back together. Chloe's voice cut through the hushed air of Verdant and Sons like ice through silk. Lucas, explain. Now. The words were sharp, deliberate, and yielding, each syllable carrying the cold precision of a blade. They struck the room with the force of inevitability, shattering the fragile calm that had existed before Sophia's whispered question. Lucas's hand froze mid-step. Eleanor flinched. The children stiffened. Time seemed to stretch, elongating every heartbeat. Eleanor instinctively moved to shield the triplets, gathering them close to her chest. Her arms were trembling, holding Mateo, Leon, and Sophia as if her own body could block the world's judgment. She muttered soft apologies, almost inaudible, but frantic, each word spilling out in a rush. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean. Please, please, let's just go." The children clung to her skirts, their small faces wide, unsure, teetering between fear and curiosity. Matteo tugged lightly at her sleeve. "Mama," his voice was small, hesitant, filled with a mixture of awe and worry. Leon hid slightly behind his sister, peeking out with cautious eyes. Sophia clutched her mother's arm, still processing, still uncomprehending. Lucas's instincts overpowered his careful, calculated mind. He stepped forward, reaching out and grasping Eleanor's wrist gently but firmly. "Eleanor." "Wait, are they?" His voice trembled, though he tried to keep it low, steady, controlled. "Are they mine?" Eleanor's eyes widened in terror. She recoiled, pulling back instinctively, dragging the children with her. "No, no, Lucas, just let us go, like you did before." Her words were sharp with desperation, but choked, breaking in the middle, as if the air itself were conspiring against her. "Please, don't do this now." The store felt suddenly smaller, crowded, suffocating. Crystal figurines shimmered on their pedestals, sparkling innocently, oblivious to the chaos consuming the adults. The velvet pads of the display cases looked cold, distant. The ring, the flawless diamond worth millions, sat untouched behind Lucas. Brilliant and meaningless. Everything he had come for, everything he had meticulously planned for, now felt hollow. The children sensed the tension, their small bodies pressing closer to their mother. Matteo's finger trembled as he pointed toward Lucas. Leon's lips pressed together, his brows furrowed. Sophia's dark eyes were wide and searching, a mixture of recognition and innocent fear. Mr. Verdant, the store's owner, emerged from behind a corner, moving with calm authority. The elderly man's eyes were sharp and observant, but his voice carried a measured warmth. "Enough," he said quietly, though each word carried weight. This needs to be private. Please, follow me." Eleanor's eyes darted at him suspiciously, still clutching the children. Her fingers tightened around Sophia's small frame. Lucas stepped closer, his expression pleading, his chest tightening as he watched her hesitate. "Please, Eleanor," he said softly, almost desperate. "Just, let's talk somewhere private. You don't have to face this here." She shook her head violently, murmuring, No, I can't. I can't do this in front of them. Not here. Not now." Mr. Verdant gestured gently toward a side door. "Follow me. A private viewing room. Safe, calm. Away from the public eye." His voice was steady, firm, almost protective. And it carried a sense of inevitability. Reluctantly, Eleanor followed, guiding the triplets. Lucas trailing close behind. The tension between them was palpable. Every step echoed in the soft marble of the floor. Every glance, every tremor of her hands, every flicker of his gaze carried hues of unspoken words, broken promises, and unresolved emotions. Once inside the private room, the door clicked softly behind them. The outside world, the soft hum of the city, the press. Chloe's icy voice faded. The children's attention was drawn by a kind young assistant, who knelt beside them with gentle patience. She offered small toys, a soft ball, a wooden puzzle, a stuffed rabbit. "Here," she said kindly. "You can play for a little while. Everything will be okay." Matteo's face brightened slightly. He took the ball, rolling it carefully to Leon, who caught it with a shy grin. Sophia hugged the rabbit, glancing occasionally at Lucas, still processing the impossible recognition of the man kneeling beside them. The toys offered distraction, but not comfort. Not yet. Eleanor sank onto a low couch, her shoulders trembling. The weight of the moment pressed down on her, suffocating. She buried her face in her hands, whispering words of fear and apology that didn't reach anyone. I can't do this. Not now, not here, not with them, not with you. Lucas exhaled slowly, feeling the tension grip his chest. He did not move closer. He did not speak. He could only watch, aching to step into the impossible, uncertain gap between them. To reclaim what had been lost, the world outside, the ring, the prestige. Chloe's expectations, they meant nothing compared to the fragile, living reality before him. Mr. Verdant lingered near the doorway, quiet and watchful, no judgment, no impatience, only a silent understanding that some truths could not be negotiated, bought, or planned. Some battles, most important battles, were fought with the heart, not with contracts or money. Lucas looked at Eleanor, the children, the toys scattered lightly round them, the trembling hands, the soft sighs. His own breath hitched. He felt every year lost. Every lie that had kept him from this moment. Every decision that had built a life of perfection, all crumbling under the weight of what was real. And in the silence of that room, with toys scattered on the floor and 3 small children looking at him with curiosity and innocence, Lucas understood one thing with absolute clarity. He could not leave, not this time, not now, though. Truth, fragile and unyielding, demanded to be faced, and finally, he was ready, or as ready as anyone could ever be. The room felt impossibly small. The soft hum of the air conditioning, the distant muffled city, the muted click of toys against the carpet, none of it mattered. All that existed was Chloe. Her gaze searing, sharp, unwavering. Lucas, leaning forward, tense, desperate for answers. And Eleanor, trembling, holding the remnants of years she had been forced to bury. Chloe's eyes didn't leave him. They were cold, calculating, a weapon honed from years of public scrutiny and personal ambition. Lucas, she said slowly, deliberately, letting each word linger like a weight, explain, right now, every detail. Lucas's hands clenched. At his sides, his knuckles were white. But he could barely form words. I don't understand, Eleanor. What is this? His voice cracked slightly, betraying the calm for weight he had spent decades perfecting. Are these my children? Eleanor's lips trembled. She swallowed, trying to find a place to start. A way to unpack years of pain, fear, and solitude compressed into a single, unbearable moment. Her voice came out ragged, choked with emotion. Lucas, you need to hear this. You need to know the truth. And it's not just about them. It's about everything you were told. Everything you thought you knew. Lucas took a sharp breath. Then tell me. Please, tell me everything. Her eyes flicked briefly to the triplets, who were playing quietly with the toys, sensing the weight of the moment, but not understanding it. Then she drew in a deep breath and let the memory unfold. It began years ago, a younger Eleanor, her body small but carrying life within her, standing outside the gates of the Carter family estate. She had been terrified, alone, and pregnant. Lucas had just been sent away on one of the forced business tours his family used to control him, to remove him from what they considered a distraction. She remembered the estate, cold and imposing, the gates like the walls of a fortress, the stone and iron echoing wealth and authority, and the way Eleanor Carter's eyes had cut into her. The moment she was ushered into the drawing room, Lucas's mother, regal, cold, every inch the embodiment of power and legacy, stood with a check in her hand. Her posture unyielding. This is for the best, my dear. Eleanor had said smoothly, almost kindly, though the words were edged with steel. Lucas has a destiny. You and your complication are not part of it. She extended the check toward Eleanor. The paper felt impossibly heavy in her hands, heavy with meaning, heavy with the price of her silence. Eleanor's hands shook. I can't just leave him, she whispered, almost to herself. He doesn't even know yet. How can I sign this NDA? Eleanor interrupted, her voice ice under silk. Take the money, disappear, and you will be safe. You will have what you need to survive. But Lucas, he must continue on his path, uninterrupted. Eleanor's eyes darted down at the check. The number scrolled across it seemed both enormous and laughably small. Her voice had broken, tears spilling freely now, as she remembered that moment. I didn't want to. I tried to fight it. I went to the estate. I begged her, pleaded. Lucas, I begged her to let me keep you in his life. I told her I loved him, that he had a right to know, to choose. But she said no. She said my existence, our existence, would ruin everything he was supposed to become. And she handed me the money. Signed the papers herself. I had no choice. I couldn't keep him. I couldn't. Lucas's hands tightened into fists at his sides, his knuckles cracked. He could feel the fury building, but beneath it, a deeper ache, grief, guilt, and unbearable sorrow. I never knew. They told me you moved on, that you were married, had a life. Eleanor shook her head slowly, tears streaking her worn cheeks. I almost died giving birth, Lucas. The triplets, they were premature. I spent months in the NICU, fighting for them every day, alone. I never told you, because they told me to disappear. Because your family, they threatened me, and I was too scared. I didn't know if you'd even fight for us. I didn't know if you'd be able to see past everything they made you believe. Chloe's icy expression softened ever so slightly, replaced by fascination and horror. Her lips parted, but no words came immediately. Lucas's jaw tightened. He felt the weight of years stolen from him, the moments he could never get back. The memories of laughter, of little lives growing without him, all pressed into that single room. Thick and suffocating. Eleanor swallowed hard, voice breaking again, and continued, and now we're here. You see them, Lucas. You see the truth, the children you never knew existed, the life I've carried alone. Protecting them from a world that would have hurt them if they knew. I'm done hiding. You need to know. Lucas's chest tightened so sharply it was almost painful. His eyes swept over the triplets, their dark hair, their familiar eyes, their small, careful movements, and he could barely breathe. Every detail mirrored him, mirrored Eleanor. Mirrored the years that should have been his. The weight of lost time pressed down on him. Heavier than the world, heavier than wealth, power, or perfection. Chloe's gaze flicked between Lucas and Eleanor, sharp, calculating, ice hardening into fire. She took a measured step forward, voice low and dangerous. So this is what you've been hiding. All this time. Lucas's lips parted, but he could only whisper. Hoarse with emotion, all this, and I never knew. Eleanor's shoulders shook with silent sobs. Her hands covering her face briefly. Now you know. That is all I can give you. The rest is yours to live with. The room held its breath. The weight of truth, long denied, long buried, finally pressed into the space between them. And in that quiet, suffocating moment, Lucas understood something he had never truly grasped before. Perfection had always been a lie, and reality messy, painful. Unforgiving was the only thing that ever mattered. Eleanor's hands trembled slightly as she recalled the hospital. Her eyes, still wide with fear and exhaustion, seemed to reach back in time, as though the memory had never truly left her. It was terrifying, Lucas, she whispered, her voice breaking, barely audible over the soft hum of the private room. I went in alone. I had to check myself into the hospital by myself. I was only 24 weeks pregnant. Lucas's chest tightened. He felt a sharp sting in his heart, as if someone had shoved a cold blade into his chest. His mind raced, trying to picture the small, vulnerable body of Eleanor at the time, carrying his children alone, facing a world that should have been safer, but wasn't. The doctors, they said the babies might not survive, Eleanor continued, her voice raw, each word a tremor, shaking the room. Matteo, Leon, Sophia, they were so tiny. I couldn't even hold them at first. I couldn't, and then, the bleeding started. I nearly died. No one was there but me. The nurses, they were busy. The NICU was full. I prayed, Lucas. I begged them to live. Every single day for months, I lived in fear. Every alarm, every monitor. It felt like the world was waiting to take them from me. Lucas's breath caught in his throat. His hands shook. He had imagined hardship, struggled through late nights at the office, made deals that would cost millions, endured loss in abstract ways, but this was unimaginable. He had never pictured Eleanor fighting for their children alone, her life and theirs hanging by threads thinner than hair. I couldn't call you, Eleanor admitted, tears now streaming freely down her cheeks. Your family, they said I had to disappear. They threatened me. They told me you were gone, sent away. They said you'd never come back. I didn't want to die, Lucas. I had to survive. I had to protect them. So I kept it, hidden. I hid every call, every hospital visit, every pain, every tear. Lucas sank into the chair across from her, his head in his hands. The weight of what he had never known pressed down on him, crushing. His mind flashed to every text he'd received, every rumor he'd believed, every carefully constructed lie his family had fed him. They had told him she had moved on, that she was married, that his life and his future were intact. They had orchestrated everything, every memory, every truth. Every child he had never held they had erased. He couldn't speak. Words failed him. The room was heavy with the truth of years stolen. Chloe's gaze, once sharp and cold, had softened not with sympathy, but with fascination, horror, and disbelief. She had expected anger, confrontation, indignation, but what she saw instead was a man unraveling. Lucas Carter, the flawless, untouchable billionaire, kneeling in private agony. Stripped of perfection by reality itself, her lips parted slightly. So, this is what you never told me, she murmured, almost to herself, her voice carrying the strange mix of shock and morbid curiosity. All this time, you've been hiding, children. Lucas lifted his head slowly, eyes glassy, haunted. He couldn't even look at Chloe. Every instinct screamed at him to protect Eleanor, to reach for his children, to repair the years he had lost. But he couldn't, not yet. Not until the story was fully told, every wound laid bare, every truth acknowledged. Eleanor wiped at her cheeks, exhausted and raw. I survived. I carried them. I fought every single day. I watched them fight. I almost lost all of them. And I did it alone. Every day, Lucas. Every single day. And I never wanted you to know. Because I didn't know if you would choose us. I didn't know if if you would come for us, or if you would turn away because of what they told you? Lucas could feel himself breaking in the most profound way he had ever known. Rage, grief, guilt, sorrow, love all crashing together into a tide he could neither hold back nor escape. He had lost years, moments he would never get back, and the truth had been orchestrated away from him by the very people he had trusted most. Chloe remained silent, watching him, fascinated and disturbed. The perfect world she had imagined, the flawless man, the perfect life. The diamond, the gala was crumbling in front of her. Lucas Carter, the man she thought she knew, was human, flawed, and broken in ways she had never anticipated. And in that brokenness, in that unraveling, Eleanor's courage and endurance shone brighter than anything he had ever pursued or achieved. Lucas's voice was hoarse when he finally spoke, a whisper carried on ragged breaths. I never knew, I had no idea. They lied to me, my family, they took everything from us. Eleanor nodded, exhausted, trembling. Yes, and now you see it. This is the truth. The life I carried, the children I raised alone, the fear, the struggle, the blood I shed to keep them alive. Silence fell. The triplets played quietly, oblivious to the storm of revelation that had just engulfed the adults, the toys in their hands small. Ordinary contrasted sharply with the extraordinary pain and courage in the room. Lucas could not look away. He could not speak. All he could do was stare, broken, realizing the world he had built on perfection was nothing compared to the messy, fragile, undeniable truth standing before him. The room had finally quieted, though the weight of revelation still lingered, thick and almost tangible, pressing down on everyone. Lucas's eyes swept across the small figures before him. Mateo, Leon, and Sophia. They were bright, alert, their curiosity shining through the fatigue and weariness etched into their faces. Each movement was careful, measured, as though they had been trained to move gently in a world that was not always kind. Mateo, the eldest of the twins, fiddled with a small wooden toy, turning it over in his hands as if testing its balance, making sure it wouldn't break. His small fingers were nimble, but there was a subtle tension in them, a hint of someone who had learned early that things were fragile, easily lost. Leon, slightly quieter, mirrored his brother's movements, his eyes flicking occasionally to Eleanor, who still held herself together only by sheer force of will. The protective shield of a mother forged over years of struggle. Sophia, the youngest, tugged at Eleanor's sleeve for reassurance. Her dark eyes were wide, absorbing every detail, every expression on Lucas's face, every nuance of the room. Her clothes were slightly worn, patched in places. Not ill-made but evidence of a life lived carefully, of resources stretched to protect her little world. Yet in her face there was something untamed, a spark that refused to be dimmed by hardship or fear. For a long moment, Lucas simply watched them, every detail etched into his memory. The shape of their noses, the curve of their brows, the familiar slope of their hairline, it was all him. It was all Eleanor. It was all the fragments of a past he thought he had lost. His chest ached with a combination of grief and awe, and he realized he had spent his life building empires, buying perfection, and chasing control. Yet never had he known the gravity of creating life, protecting it, and surviving through it. And then Sophia, small and fearless despite everything, took a step forward. She tugged gently at the hem of his trousers, looking up at him with wide, searching eyes. Her voice was soft, tentative, almost fragile, yet it carried a weight that could not be ignored. "Ah, you really are Daddy?" Lucas froze, his heart lurching violently in his chest. He knelt slowly to her level, voice catching in his throat. Yes, yes, Sophia, I am. His lips trembled, not from weakness, but from the tidal wave of emotion threatening to sweep him away. The little girl's hands lifted to clutch at his jacket, small fingers gripping tightly, and in that moment, instinct took over. He bent forward, wrapping his arms carefully around her tiny body. She was heavier than he expected, not in weight, but in substance, in life, in everything that made her real and irreplaceable. The weight of her was alien in the sense that it was new, uncharted. Yet it felt somehow more authentic than anything he had ever held before. His chest tightened further, tears stinging his eyes as he felt her pulse against him, the quiet rhythm of a life he had never known, yet had always been a part of him. The room seemed to contract, the air thickening with unspoken words, with grief, with years stolen, with hope, and with something unnameable but profoundly present, love. Daddy, Sophia repeated softly, almost as if testing the word, tasting it on her tongue, trying to make it real. Yes, he whispered again, voice hoarse, almost a prayer. Yes, I'm here. I've always been here, even when I wasn't. Matteo and Leon hesitated at first, unsure, cautious, then slowly, carefully, they stepped closer. Matteo reached out, brushing a tentative hand against Lucas's sleeve, as if measuring whether this was real, whether this man who looked like him could truly be part of their lives. Leon followed, clinging briefly to Eleanor's side, then inching forward. Curiosity overcoming caution, Eleanor watched silently, heart in her throat, relief and fear warring in her chest. She had lived years alone, had fought battles no one could see, had protected them at every turn, and now, finally, she saw him, the man they had all been waiting for, acknowledging them, claiming them, being claimed in return. Lucas held Sophia close for what felt like an eternity, rocking her gently, feeling the warmth of life that was both new and profoundly familiar. His tears fell freely now, unrestrained, for the children he had lost, for the years he would never reclaim, and for the love that had endured despite time, distance, and deception. In that quiet, fragile moment, the chaos of the store, the glare of Chloe, the weight of wealth, ambition, and expectation, all of it faded. There was only this, 3 children, soft and alive, tethering him to a reality he had never dared to imagine, and a truth more profound than any empire, any diamond, any life of perfection he had ever known. And as Sophia nestled into his chest, looking up at him with trust and wonder, Lucas knew, with a certainty he had never felt before, that no amount of wealth or control could compare to this, the weight of a life he had almost never known, now finally in his arms, finally real. Chloe moved toward him with that familiar, deliberate grace he had once admired, the kind of grace that could charm a room, bend reality, and command attention without raising her voice. But this was different. Now, it carried the lethal calm of a predator, the quiet precision of someone who had calculated every angle and outcome. She stopped just a step away from Lucas, close enough that he could feel the faint perfume she always wore, the subtle sweetness mixed with something cold, imperious. Her eyes locked onto his, icy and unwavering, leaving no space to hide, no room to breathe. "You have 1 hour," she said, her voice deceptively soft, each word slicing through the tension like a scalpel. 1 hour to decide. You come home with me, with that ring. She gestured slightly, the diamond behind her glinting under the store lights, almost mocking in its perfection. "And we handle this discreetly, quietly, carefully, a generous trust fund for the children. Legal guardianship settled without anyone ever knowing. Everyone wins, Everyone but me. I guess except me, I get what I want to. Lucas's throat tightened. His mind raced, trying to process the weight of her words, the proposition, the ultimatum. Every muscle in his body screamed, his chest tight, heart hammering. He looked at Eleanor, at the triplets, the small worn shoes, the careful movements, the eyes that mirrored his own, and then back at Chloe, the vision of the life he had built, meticulously polished, perfectly curated, the penthouse, the gala, the press, the power, the diamond, the perfection. Chloe's voice cut through his paralysis again, or her tone dropped, deliberate, lethal in its calmness. Or you stay here, with this. She gestured subtly, encompassing Eleanor, the children, the chaos, the truth he had never wanted to face until now. But you can't have both, Lucas. Not the life we built, not the empire, not the image, and the blood you denied. Not now, not ever. You choose, Lucas's mind screamed, every thought colliding violently. One path was clear, safe, expected, the life he had meticulously constructed, the perfect engagement, the diamond ring, the societal admiration, the seamless continuation of everything he thought mattered. The other path was messy, terrifying, unpredictable. It was a life filled with uncertainty, responsibility, and raw, unfiltered love, a life he had never truly imagined he could lead, yet one that now stood before him in the form of three small, fragile bodies and the woman who had sacrificed everything to protect them. He opened his mouth, but words failed him. His chest heaved. Every instinct screamed to reach out to Eleanor, to sweep the children into his arms, to claim what had always been his, but his mind twisted, knowing the consequences, knowing the fallout, knowing the empire he might destroy by choosing this path. Chloe stepped back slightly, letting the weight of her ultimatum settle in the air like a stone. Her eyes never left his, cold and calculating, but there was a flicker there, a test, a challenge, a promise that if he chose wrong, there would be no second chance. I said 1 hour, Lucas. She murmured, almost softly, but the air around the words crackled with authority. Decide. You want the ring, the life, the luxury, the image, or you take responsibility for the truth that has been standing in front of you the whole time. Then, without another word, she turned sharply. Her heels clicked decisively against the polished floor, each step echoing in the tense, silent room. The door swung closed behind her with a final, resounding click. The sound was almost ceremonial, the closing of a chapter, the marking of a line he could never cross back over. Lucas remained frozen, staring at the door, the diamond, the children, and Eleanor. The ticking of the quiet air conditioning, the soft rustle of toys, the distant hum of the city outside. The world continued, indifferent, but in that room, everything had shifted irreversibly. The ultimatum hung in the air like a blade, slicing through certainty, through years of carefully constructed perfection, through fear and longing, through every expectation he had ever held for himself. He was alone with the choice that would define him, not as a billionaire, not as a fiancé, not as a son, but as a father. The room seemed impossibly silent, the weight of the moment pressing down on him. Yet within that silence, something undeniable emerged, the call of truth, raw and unyielding, impossible to ignore, impossible to escape. And as the echo of Chloe's heels faded, Lucas's eyes met Eleanor's. And for the first time, the path forward felt both terrifying and absolutely necessary. The car ride was silent at first, the kind of silence that wasn't peaceful but heavy, full of unspoken words, guilt, fear, and the weight of choices finally made. Lucas sat in the back, Eleanor beside him, holding the triplets close. Matteo rested his head against her shoulder. Leon clutched a small, worn toy, and Sophia's tiny hand curled on Eleanor's fingers. They were exhausted, weary, and Lucas felt every ounce of their caution pressing into him. He picked up his phone, dialing his driver with deliberate precision. "Not the penthouse," he instructed. "Take us to the hotel. Quiet, safe, the suite on the top floor. No media. No interruptions." "Understood." "Yes, sir," came the calm reply. The car hummed along the rain-slicked streets of the city, headlights reflecting off puddles like tiny mirrors, fractured and shimmering. As if the world outside mirrored the fracture in Lucas's life. Inside, the children clung to Eleanor. But their curiosity peeked through in small glances at Lucas. He caught Matteo staring at his hands, then quickly looking away, as if noticing his own reflection in his son for the first time. Leon tilted his head, eyes observant, catching every twitch, every imperfection, every flicker of emotion. And Sophia stared up at him with those wide and blinking eyes, so small, so real, so utterly unafraid of what she sensed was the man who was supposed to belong to her. Once they arrived, Lucas instructed the staff to bring their luggage and check them in quickly. The suite was quiet, sterile in its perfection, but it offered safety, distance, anonymity. He watched Eleanor gently settle the children on a couch with soft blankets and small toys. They were cautious, hesitant, but slowly, they began to relax. Lucas stepped aside to make the first call. "Chloe." "Lucas, are you seeing this?" Her voice was sharp, clipped, frosted with rage. "The tabloids are already running with the story. Do you know what this is doing to my reputation?" He remained silent for a moment, the words caught in his throat. "Chloe, I know." "Don't explain," she snapped, voice rising. "I have a publicist on it already. I'm crafting the narrative, spinning this before anyone can get ahead of me. Do you understand? Your perfect life is unraveling, and it's all your fault." He ended the call, letting the phone drop onto the table. His hands shook slightly. The world he had built, the empire, the diamond ring, the perfect image was crumbling in real time. The next call came from his father. The barrage of anger hit him like a physical blow. "Lucas, how could you be so stupid? Explain this, fix it. You're jeopardizing everything." Lucas exhaled slowly, pain and exhaustion warring in his chest. I can't. Not like this. I won't," he said quietly. His father balked again, but Lucas let the calls ring. The words washing over him without meaning. The empire could wait. The life he had been told was. His truth could wait. The children could not. Eleanor, meanwhile, retreated to the bath. The water ran hot, streaming over her worn skin, over muscles tense from years of struggle, over the exhaustion and fear she had carried alone. She let herself finally fall apart. Tears streamed freely now, unconstrained by pride or caution. Her sobs filled the quiet suite, mingling with the low hum of the city outside. Years of pain, years of hiding, years of protecting and surviving alone, everything came spilling out in waves. Lucas, hesitant at first, finally turned to the children. Room service had arrived. Plates of simple food, carefully chosen to be safe and familiar, sat before them. He tried, awkwardly, to feed them, mimicking what Eleanor had done thousands of times. Matteo's small hand brushed his, and he noticed a flicker, a shared gesture, a similarity in posture and motion. Leon reached for a napkin the same way Lucas would have when he was a boy. Small habits passed down unintentionally, and Sophia, she looked at him with quiet trust. Soft eyes wide and waiting, letting him take part in their small, fragile world. As he watched them, Lucas realized something profound. The truth was not about the empire, the image, the diamond, the gala, or even Chloe. It was here. In their laughter, in the careful attention to toys, and the quiet moments of trust forming between a father and children he had never met before. And yet, the question remained, pressing on him like a physical weight. What was truth? Was it the factual existence of the children, the undeniable, tangible proof of his life with Eleanor? Or was it the life of success, power, and perfection he had been told was his birthright, the life meticulously built by family, society, and ambition? He looked at Eleanor, tears still streaking her face, her hair damp, her posture relaxed for the first time in years. And then at the children, whose faces were curious and trusting, fragile and fearless all at once. Lucas exhaled, finally letting himself feel it all. Every regret, every stolen year. Every lie fed to him. Every choice made for him, none of it mattered as much as this, the truth in front of him. Messy and real and alive. The suite was quiet, but for the first time in years, Lucas felt something he had long forgotten, a fragile, trembling peace, rooted not in perfection or control, but in truth. The phone rang incessantly, an unrelenting alarm, in the quiet of the hotel suite. Lucas's hand hovered over it, tense, aware that every ring was a summons to a world he had tried to leave behind. A world built on control, expectation, and cruelty. Finally, he answered. Lucas Carter, said a crisp, clipped voice, laced with authority and accusation. It was his father. We're convening an emergency board meeting immediately. Your personal instability, this situation with Eleanor? With the children, it's jeopardizing everything. We will consider diluting your shares. Your engagement's collapse threatens the merger. You need to fix this now. Lucas's chest tightened. He gripped the edge of the table, knuckles white, as the weight of years of perfection, expectation, and duty pressed down on him. I understand, he said carefully, his voice measured though his mind screamed. I will review everything with you. His father's tone sharpened, slicing through the air like a blade. Review? There's nothing to review, Lucas. This is chaos. This is your failure. The call ended abruptly, leaving Lucas staring at the silent phone, the echo of his father's fury still ringing in his ears. Before he could gather himself, another wave of reality hit. His phone pinged with notifications, dozens of them at once, news alerts, social media feeds, messages from acquaintances. From the world that had always celebrated him for control and perfection. The headlines were merciless. Billionaire's secret love children, society wedding off, images of Chloe, looking tragically betrayed, flashed across every screen. She had perfected the performance of heartbreak, her pose impeccable, her sorrow open in the public eye. Lucas sank into the armchair, pressing his hands over his face. Every life he had constructed, every image, every carefully curated detail of perfection shattered in hours. The world he had built for years crumbled, and there was no one to blame but himself. Or was it them, his father, his family, the lies, the secrets, the calculated removals of the truth he didn't know anymore? Eleanor's voice cut through the chaos. Soft but urgent. Lucas, don't let them scare you. Don't let them make you doubt. She stood beside him, brushing damp strands of hair from her face. I didn't come back to ruin your life. We'll be fine. You and me, the children, will be fine. He looked at her and for the first time really saw her the strength it had taken to survive alone. To protect 3 tiny lives, to navigate a world designed to crush her spirit, all while hiding the truth from him. Her eyes, wide and earnest, reflected a courage he had underestimated for too long. She had endured, fought, and survived on her own. Shaped not by nurture but by the harshness of his family's wealth and cruelty. Every choice, every sacrifice, every fear she had endured had been for these children, and now, for him. I see that now," he whispered, voice thick with emotion. "You've been stronger than anyone I know. Stronger than me, maybe. And I failed you. I failed them." Eleanor shook her head, stepping closer, placing a trembling hand on his arm. "No, Lucas. You didn't fail us. You're here now. That's what matters. We survive because we have each other. That's what matters." Lucas exhaled slowly, letting the words settle over him. The boardroom threats, the tabloid headlines, Chloe's calculated performance, they were all part of a world that had never mattered until now. His empire, the image of perfection, the carefully polished life, it was meaningless compared to the raw, unshakable truth in front of him. 3 children who bore his face. Eleanor who bore his love and courage, and a life built not on control or image, but on survival, sacrifice, and undeniable reality. He reached down to gently touch Matteo's head, then Leon's, then Sophia's tiny hand. Their trust, their fragile courage, the careful way they approached him, it was everything he had never known he wanted, everything he had been missing. And as he looked at Eleanor, a sense of clarity settled over him, sharp and unyielding. This was truth. Messy and difficult and imperfect, but real. And nothing, not his father, not Chloe, not the world, could change that. For the first time, Lucas realized that power and wealth meant nothing without this. Without them. Without the family he had just found, stitched together from secrets, lies, and years of lost time. And as the headlines scrolled across his phone, he made a choice in his mind, silent but resolute. The life they wanted to take from him, the life of control, of perfection, of image, was no longer his. The room felt still, the storm raging outside, the world screaming, but inside that hotel suite, a quiet, fragile determination began to grow. Lucas Carter, the man who had built empires, who had chased perfection, who had believed he could control everything, was beginning to understand the one thing he could not control: the truth. The hotel suite was quiet except for the soft, irregular coughs coming from Matteo. Lucas had been sitting nearby, trying to distract the children with a puzzle, a game of blocks. Anything to take his mind off the chaos outside. But when Sophia noticed her brother's flushed cheeks and whispered, "Mama," Matteo's heart, a cold dread sank into Lucas's chest. Eleanor came immediately, brushing the hair from Matteo's forehead and gasping softly, oh no, baby." Her hands shook as she took his temperature with a small, portable thermometer. The reading made her lips pale. 102.5 Fahrenheit. High. Dangerous. Panic threaded through her exhausted voice. "He's burning up, Lucas. We have to get him to the hospital. Now." Lucas nodded, panic stirring beneath the surface, though he tried to mask it with calm. He grabbed his phone, intending to call the hotel concierge for help, only to remember a critical detail: he wasn't on any of the children's insurance forms. None of the paperwork included him. None of the privileges he thought came with his wealth mattered here. He could call, he could pay, he could wish, but legally, he was powerless. Eleanor shot him a look, sharp and urgent. "Lucas, call a cab, or the front desk. We don't have time to argue." The taxi arrived almost immediately. Though nothing about the ride felt safe, Matteo rested in Eleanor's arms. Small hands clutching her blouse, shivering despite the warmth of the car. Sophia and Leon sat on either side of Lucas, silent, worried, the tension radiating off them like static electricity. Lucas kept his hand over Matteo's tiny body, wishing there were a way to absorb the fever into himself, to shield him, to fix the problem with money, influence, or control, but there was nothing. At the hospital, chaos hit immediately. Nurses and doctors moved with urgent efficiency, scanning charts, checking monitors, asking questions Lucas could not answer. He realized in that moment the depth of Eleanor's previous life, endless trips to clinics, fighting bureaucratic walls, explaining herself to strangers, filling forms, paying bills, advocating for her children alone. He had never seen it, never understood it, never had to. Now, the brutal reality slammed into him. Eleanor's exhaustion showed in the set of her shoulders, in the faint tremor of her hands as she signed forms, answered questions, and tried to calm Matteo's fevered cries. Lucas hovered beside her, wanting desperately to help, to do something, but all his usual tools, money, charm, status, were useless. He could not fix this with perfection or control. He could only be present. Hours passed in a blur of monitors, doctors' assessments, and whispered reassurances. Lucas watched the children, watched Eleanor, watched his own hands do nothing useful but tremble slightly, and then, in the quiet lull between rounds, it hit him. His penthouse, his board meetings, his gala appearances, the flawless engagement ring, the empire he had built, they were all a gilded shell, beautiful, polished, admired, but hollow, empty. This the mess, the fear, the shivering body of a tiny boy in his mother's arms. The exhaustion and courage it took to navigate life alone. This was real. This was truth. It was terrifying, overwhelming, and impossible to control. But it was life. It was love. And it was worth everything. Lucas exhaled slowly, steadying himself, letting the weight of the revelation settle. He stepped close to Eleanor, kneeling by her side, and spoke softly. "Eleanor, listen to me. I can't go back. I can't go back to Chloe. I can't go back to that perfect life I thought I wanted. None of it matters anymore." Eleanor looked at him, disbelief in her eyes. "Lucas, what are you saying?" He took her hands, feeling their worn, real texture, and said with quiet determination, "I'm saying this. I'm not signing a check and walking away. I'm not abandoning you. I'm signing up. However you'll have me. Whatever it takes, I'm here. I'm yours, all of us together." Tears welled in her eyes, soft, unguarded, a mixture of relief, shock, and hope. She shook her head slightly, whispering, You mean it. You really mean it." "Yes," he said firmly. "I mean it. Every part of me. I can't promise it will be easy. I can't promise it will be perfect. But I can promise it will be real. With the children, with you. That's the life I want. That's the truth I choose. For the first time, the chaos, the fear, the sleepless nights, the mounting pressures, all of it became manageable because Lucas had chosen the only thing that mattered: presence, responsibility, and the messy, imperfect, unshakable reality of family. He leaned forward, resting his forehead briefly against Eleanor's hand. "We'll get a private nurse for Matteo tonight. I'll hire someone reputable, someone kind, and I'll find a family law attorney, someone who will make sure you and the kids are safe. That's my responsibility now. I accept it. Fully. No shortcuts, no money, no control. Just us Eleanor let out a shuddering breath, finally allowing herself to believe it, to hope. The children stirred nearby, sensing the change in the room, the shift in energy, the presence of a father who was no longer absent, no longer powerless, no longer a stranger. Lucas Carter had finally understood what truth demanded, not perfection, not wealth, not image but courage, love, responsibility, and the willingness to step into a life that was frighteningly real, and he would never turn away again. The fallout hit like a storm. Lucas sat in the quiet of a temporary office, surrounded by stacks of documents and blinking screens, but the numbers told him everything he needed to know. The merger, the centerpiece of his meticulously planned empire, had collapsed. The boardroom threats, the negotiations, the flawless image he had spent years building gone. The stock plunged almost instantly, the financial world buzzing with gossip, speculation, and the brutal certainty of failure. The empire he thought unshakable had cracks wide enough to fall through. His phone rang. Chloe. He ignored it. Then, a flood of notifications, social media, news outlets, messaging apps. He opened a headline and froze. Billionaire Lucas Carter's secret family revealed, engagement collapses. Another. Chloe betrayed by fiancé, the truth behind the Carter empire. And then a video clip, brief and polished, Chloe, tearful, speaking to the press. Her voice trembling in perfectly controlled emotion. I never knew. I didn't know he had children. I thought our life. I thought we were building something. I can't continue like this. The interview ended with her eyes glistening with tears, every frame a carefully staged public heartbreak. Lucas's jaw tightened. He had expected anger, confrontation, perhaps a few pointed calls from colleagues, but this was theater, precision, and ruin all rolled into one. He looked at the screens, at the numbers, at the public reactions, and then closed the laptop with a slow, deliberate movement. The world could spin, collapse, gossip, and vilify, but it no longer mattered what they thought. The next blow came in the form of his parents, a public statement, formal and unyielding. Cut through every outlet, Lucas Carter has acted recklessly and selfishly. He has chosen personal indulgence over family duty and company responsibility. We no longer claim him as our son. The words were sharp, cold, surgical, disowned, publicly, completely. Lucas felt nothing at first. The anger, the sting, the shame, they were all there, buried under years of conditioned obedience to expectations that had never truly belonged to him. He exhaled slowly, and for the first time, he felt a strange liberation. The chains of wealth, status, and family approval were gone, broken, useless. And he was free. The next morning, Lucas began the work of rebuilding not an empire, not an image, not perfection but life. He sold the penthouse, every gleaming surface, every polished floor, every high-rise view he had spent a lifetime curating. He liquidated assets tied to the family company, securing enough independent wealth to provide a stable life for Eleanor and the children. No boardrooms, no mergers, no high society galas, just security, space, and freedom. He found a house, not sleek or cold, not a showpiece, but lived in, warm, with wide rooms for laughter and mess, a garden for the children to run freely, walls thick enough to contain their voices, and a kitchen where the smell of home could overpower any memory of sterile perfection. Matteo, Leon, and Sophia explored cautiously at first, their small hands trailing along new banisters, their eyes lighting up at the possibility of a place to truly belong. Eleanor smiled, a soft, genuine curve of lips that had been missing for far too long, and Lucas felt something he had never known in all his high-rise penthouse years: ease. And then, the ring. The diamond. The $10 million symbol of perfection. Lucas walked through the polished floors of Verdant and Sons again, but this time, it was different. No need to impress, no need to buy status, no need to conform. The ring remained behind the glass, glittering impossibly, unreachable, unnecessary. Instead, he handed the jeweler a silver locket. Worn, delicate, precious because of the memories it contained. "Repair this," he said quietly. "Make it whole." Again. And for the children, 3 small, sturdy silver bracelets, simple but perfect in their own right, each engraved with the name Matteo, Leon, Sophia, and the date they met him. The date the truth spoke and the lives he had abandoned were finally acknowledged. No price tag. No luxury, no showmanship, just markers of life, of love, of commitment. He returned to the house carrying the small packages. Eleanor looked up, curious and slightly wary, but her eyes softened when she saw the locket and the bracelets. "Lucas, you didn't have to, I did." He interrupted gently. Voice low but firm. "This isn't about money. This isn't about status. This is about us. This is about truth." And he paused, letting the words settle, letting the weight of years of regret and silence fall away. "I want to build our life on this. On reality, on honesty, on love that isn't perfect, but is real." Eleanor's eyes glistened with tears, her hand reaching for his, small fingers trembling against his larger ones. Matteo, Leon, and Sophia gathered around, eyes bright, curious, and finally relaxed. The bracelets slid onto their tiny wrists, snug and gleaming, a promise that no power, no wealth, no deception could erase. Lucas stepped back, letting the moment sink in. No boardrooms. No headlines, no diamonds, nothing mattered except the family in front of him. In that moment, he understood something he had never known in all his life of perfection and control. Love and truth were priceless, immeasurable, and unshakable. The locket in Eleanor's hand caught the sunlight from the window. She opened it, and sighed. A new photo, a tiny snapshot of all 5 of them, messy, smiling, real. And Lucas knew, with a certainty deeper than any fortune, any empire, or any engagement ring could provide, that this imperfect, fragile, chaotic life was exactly what he had been searching for all along. The morning sun poured gently over the driveway, warming the concrete where small, colorful bikes were scattered. Lucas, dressed casually in faded jeans and a soft blue sweater, crouched beside Matteo's bike, steadying the handlebars with careful hands. "Okay, Matteo, just breathe, look straight ahead, don't wobble too much. I've got you," he said, voice low but encouraging, masking the nervous energy that had been building in his chest all morning. Matteo's face was tight with concentration. Tiny teeth clenched as he pedaled forward. His little legs pumping furiously. Leon teetered a few feet away, wobbling dangerously on his own bike. Lucas shifted, running over to steady him, gripping the small frame gently. "That's it, Leon. You're doing amazing. Look straight ahead. Yes, keep going. Don't give up now." The boys laughed nervously, wobbling, nearly toppling, but triumphant as they maintained balance for a few seconds longer than before. Lucas smiled, heart tight with emotion, because this was life, messy, unpredictable, joyous and entirely real. From the porch, Eleanor observed, a laptop open on her knees, sunlight catching in her hair, making it glow with a warmth Lucas had long forgotten. She typed steadily, sending files, adjusting designs, checking emails. Her movements were precise, But there was a new ease in her posture, a confidence he had never seen before. Lucas had helped her set up the tech, yes, but this work. This independence, it was all hers. She was thriving. She was alive. Sophia came running from the doorway, clutching a sheet of paper, eyes sparkling with excitement. "Daddy, look at my family," she cried, holding it up for Lucas to see. He took the paper, studying it carefully, for stick figures holding hands, all smiling. With one slightly taller figure drawn simply, lovingly, imperfectly. The other four were the children and Eleanor, each captured in crude but perfect detail. "You drew us," Lucas said, his voice thick, barely holding back tears. "All of us. This is incredible, Sophia. That's Matteo. That's Leon. That's me. And that's Mama. And that's you, Daddy," she said, pointing eagerly to each figure. Lucas lifted her gently into his arms, feeling her small weight, her trust, her joy. "Yes. It's me, and I'm never leaving again. You're stuck with me forever," he whispered, half joking, half trembling with emotion. The day passed with soft laughter, scattered toys, and the hum of work from inside the house. Blocks toppled, crayons rolled across the floor, and the smell of dinner drifted from the kitchen. This house, this life, it was loud, it was messy, it was theirs. Evening came. The living room glowed with warm light, casting long shadows over the scattered toys and drawings. Lucas's heart raced. Eleanor was arranging some papers on a small table, smiling at the children as they showed off more drawings and little trinkets. Lucas held a small box, tied simply with a ribbon, and approached her slowly. "Eleanor," his voice trembled slightly, I wanted to give you something." She turned, curious, amusement flickering across her face. "Lucas, you're making me nervous," she said softly, looking up at him with a teasing smile. He handed her the box. "Open it." Eleanor untied the ribbon and lifted the lid carefully. Inside lay a silver locket, repaired and polished, catching the warm glow of the room. She picked it up, turning it over in her hands, breath-catching when she noticed a tiny new photo inside. The five of them, messy and smiling on a picnic, sunlight falling across their faces, laughter frozen in a perfect moment. Lucas stepped closer, his voice low, reverent. "I can't promise a perfect life, Eleanor. I can't promise no mistakes, no challenges, no chaos, but I can promise this, a true life, with you, with them, with us, messy, loud, imperfect, but ours." Eleanor's hands shook slightly as she held the locket, tears spilling over her cheeks. "Lucas, it's beautiful, it's perfect," she whispered. Lucas knelt slowly among the scattered toys, heart racing. Children watching with wide eyes. "Eleanor, will you marry me? Not for diamonds, not for wealth, not for perfection, but for this, for reality, for truth, for all of it. Will you marry me?" Eleanor laughed softly, the sound catching in her throat, tears shining in her eyes. "Yes, Lucas, yes." The children erupted in cheers, running to hug both of them. Matteo leaned against Lucas. Leon hugged Eleanor, and Sophia held tightly to her repaired locket, grinning. Lucas exhaled, relief, joy, and love flooding him in a tide he had never imagined. He looked around at the room, the laughter, the scattered toys, the sunlight falling across the floor, the warmth, the chaos, and felt it fully. This was life, real, imperfect, messy, breathtakingly alive. The sacrifices, the heartbreak, the years of fear and absence, it had all led to this. Lucas's voice softened. A quiet narration only he could offer. "They say truth always demands a price. I paid mine, a fortune, a forward, a future I thought I wanted, but truth also pays dividends, and sticky hands, and shared laughter, and a love that isn't flawless, but is real. And that is the only currency that finally matters. The camera could pull back through the window, revealing the warm, chaotic, happy home, toys scattered across the lawn, a bike helmet rolling in the driveway, laughter echoing. Sunlight bathing the family in gold, and in the center of it all Lucas, Elena, Matteo, Leon, and Sophia Messi, alive together, and finally, truly home.